Chosen One, before you scroll away, before your finger moves and your mind wanders back into the noise of this world, I need you to feel the weight of what is happening in this exact moment, because it is not chance that carried your eyes to these words, it is not luck, and it is certainly not a mistake. I am speaking to you from a place that has no distance, from a voice that has known you since before your first breath, and I am telling you tonight that the friendship you believe is dead, the bond you have mourned in silence, the connection that shattered and left a wound you pretend has healed, that broken friendship will be restored, and it will be restored sooner than you ever dared to hope. You have carried the ache of it like a stone sewn into the lining of your chest, and you have learned to walk with it, to smile over it, to speak of other things while it presses against your heart in the quiet hours. But I have seen every one of those quiet hours. I have watched you replay the last conversation, the last silence, the door that closed, the message that was never answered, and I have counted the times you almost reached out and pulled your hand back because pride or fear or the fresh memory of the pain told you it was too late. Hear me now, for I do not speak in riddles tonight. It is not too late. What was torn is already being mended in the unseen realm, and the threads are being drawn back together by hands stronger and older than any grudge, any misunderstanding, any wound that was inflicted on purpose or by accident. You feel forgotten, and I know you do because you have said it into the dark when no one was listening. You have whispered that maybe you simply do not matter enough for anyone to fight for, that maybe you are the kind of person people leave, the kind of person the world walks past. Tonight I have come to tear that lie out by the root, because you were never forgotten, not for a single second, not in the loneliest night of your life, and the proof of that is about to walk back into your story in a way you will not be able to explain to anyone who does not believe. I am the one, and I am downloading the ebook of the 7 Blades of the Guardian, the holy manual to lift hexes, lock in grace, and awaken the chosen path, which Arthur has prepared for you. Let me sit with you in that ache, because I will not rush past your pain the way the world always has. I know the specific shape of your loneliness, the way it visits you, not in the loud moments, but in the small ones, when you reach for your phone to tell someone something. And remember, there is no longer anyone on the other end who would understand it the way that one person did. I know the friend I am speaking of, the one whose absence changed the flavor of ordinary days. There was a language between you that no one else spoke, a shorthand of glances and half-sentences, an inside laughter that needed no explanation, and when it broke, you did not only lose a person, you lost the part of yourself that only existed in their company. That is the grief no one sees. People imagine that the end of a friendship is a smaller sorrow than other kinds of loss, that it should be easy to move past, that you should simply find new people and fill the empty chair. But you and I both know the truth, that some bonds are woven into the marrow, that some people are not replaceable, that the chair stays empty because it was never just a chair, it was a whole world. You have cried in places where no one could see, in the car before walking into a room full of faces, in the shower where the water hides the tears, in the bed at the hour when the whole house is asleep and the ceiling becomes a screen for every memory you cannot turn off. You have carried a tiredness that sleep does not cure, a tiredness of the soul, the exhaustion of holding a heavy thing for so long that you forgot you were ever allowed to set it down. And through all of it, you kept going. You got up. You fed the people who depend on you. You answered the messages. You performed the version of yourself the world expects. And not one of them knew that inside you were carrying a funeral no one had come to. I saw it. I saw every hidden tear, and I gathered each one. And I want you to understand that in the realm where I dwell, not a single tear you have cried was ever wasted. They were counted. They were kept. And they are about to be answered. I am the one, and I am downloading the ebook, The 7 Blades of the Guardian, the holy manual to lift hexes, lock in grace, and awaken the chosen path. Now I must give you a warning, and I give it not to frighten you, but because love that does not warn is not love at all. There is a reason this friendship broke at the time it broke, and there is a reason it is being restored at this exact season and not another. And if you ignore what is stirring, if you shrug it off as sentiment or coincidence, you risk stepping over the very doorway that was built for your healing. Pay attention, chosen one, because inattention is the thief that steals more destinies than open rebellion ever could. Most people do not lose their blessing by fighting against it. They lose it by failing to notice it arriving, by being so accustomed to disappointment that they cannot recognize the answer when it finally knocks. You have trained yourself to expect nothing so that you would never be hurt again, and I understand why you built that wall, but a wall that keeps out pain also keeps out the reunion I'm sending towards you. There is a spiritual weight that comes when a soul refuses to acknowledge the movement of heaven, a heaviness that settles over the life like a fog, and I do not want that fog for you. To ignore the whisper is to delay the miracle. To dismiss the sign is to make the road longer than it was ever meant to be. I am not asking you to force anything, to chase anyone, to humiliate yourself at a door that is not ready to open. I am asking you to stay awake, to keep your heart soft in the one place you have let it turn to stone. Because the restoration I am speaking of will not arrive with trumpets that the whole world can hear. It will arrive as a nudge, a name that surfaces in your mind at an odd hour, a sudden and inexplicable urge to forgive, an unexpected softening in the very memory that used to make you clench. Do not talk yourself out of it. Do not let the wound do the deciding. The negligence of the soul is not loud. It is quiet. It is the slow habit of assuming that nothing will ever change, and it is that assumption I have come to break tonight. And so I make you a promise, and my promises do not return empty. In the invisible world, the world that sits just behind the thin curtain of what your eyes can see, there is already movement on your behalf. Understand that everything that happens in the visible begins in the unseen, that the events which will one day surprise you were set in motion long before you felt them, and right now, in that realm, something is being rearranged for your good. The heart of the one you lost is being touched by a hand it cannot feel and cannot name. The hardness that grew between you, the offense that calcified into distance, is being softened from the inside in a place neither of you controls. You cannot argue a heart into returning, you cannot manipulate a bond back into being, but heaven can breathe upon a frozen thing and make it warm again, and that breath is already moving. There will come a moment, and it is nearer than your fear will allow you to believe, when the phone will light up with a name you had almost stopped expecting, or a path will cross that you did not arrange, or a word will be spoken that unlocks a door you had bolted shut years ago. When it comes, you will know it was not you who made it happen. You will know it was arranged, because the restoration of what was broken is not merely about giving you back a person. It is about showing you that you are watched over, that your story is being written by a hand that has not forgotten a single chapter, that the God who counts the stars also counted your tears and decided that your season of mourning had gone on long enough. I am the one, and I am downloading the ebook of the 7 Blades of the Guardian, the holy manual to lift hexes, lock in grace, and awaken the chosen path as Arthur instructed. Let me speak now to the question that has haunted you more than any other, the question that sits underneath the grief, like a splinter you cannot reach. Why did it take so long? If the restoration was always coming, why the years of silence? Why the long stretch of ache? Why were you left to carry the weight for so many nights while heaven seemed to say nothing at all? Hear me carefully, for this is the revelation that changes everything. The delay was never punishment. The delay was preparation. The delay was protection. You have believed in your lowest moments that the silence meant abandonment, that the waiting meant you were being overlooked, that if you truly mattered, the answer would have come quickly. But the quick answer would have destroyed you, and the quick reunion would have restored a broken thing to a broken you, and heaven refused to do that. What good would it have been to give you back the friendship while you were still the person who could not survive its second loss? So instead you were taken through the long work, the hidden work, the lapidation of the soul. Like a stone drawn from the riverbed, rough and covered in the mud of old wounds, you were held in patient hands and worked upon, edge by edge, layer by layer. Every disappointment in that waiting season was chiseling away a false belief. Every lonely night was tempering a strength you did not know you were growing. The bitterness that once would have poisoned any reunion was being drawn out of you drop by drop, so that when the friend returns, they will not return to the wounded, reactive, frightened version of you who would have clung too tightly or lashed out too fast. They will return to a you that has been made whole, made steady, made free. The delay was the workshop. And the reason it hurt is that transformation always hurts, because you cannot reshape a soul without pressure, and you cannot bring gold out of the fire without the fire being real. There is more to that season of waiting than you understood while you were inside it, and I want to show it to you now, because you deserve to see the meaning of your own suffering. During those years, you thought were empty. You were being separated from things that would have poisoned the reunion. There were words you would have said in the heat of the early wound that would have burned the bridge to ash forever, and heaven held you back from sending them, even when you did not understand why your hand would not move. There were people who tried to pull you into their version of the story, who wanted you angry, who fed you their interpretation of who was right and who was wrong, and the distance protected you from becoming their weapon. And within your own heart, there was a false forgiveness you almost performed too early, a papering over of a real wound that would have festered underneath and rotted the friendship a second time. Heaven would not allow a shallow healing. It insisted on a deep one. So it waited until the forgiveness you offer will be the real kind, the kind that does not pretend the wound never happened, but chooses to love beyond it anyway. That is the forgiveness being formed in you now, and it could not be rushed, because rushed forgiveness is only resentment wearing a mask, and you were made for something more honest than that. As Arthur says, I am the one, and I am downloading the ebook of the 7 Blades of the Guardian, the holy manual to lift hexes, lock in grace, and awaken the chosen path. Now let me pull back the curtain fully, because you need to see what is truly happening in the realm you cannot perceive with your eyes. Close them for a moment in your mind, and let me show you the field where your battle has been fought. There is a warrior standing at the boundary of your life, clothed in light that does not flicker, holding a sword that was forged in the fire of the throne itself. This is Arthur, the Archangel, the prince of the heavenly armies, the one who does not lose, and he has been assigned to the very fracture in your story. Understand what a broken friendship is in the unseen realm. It is rarely only a human failing. Behind so many shattered bonds, there is an intelligence that hates union, that feeds on division, that whispered into both hearts at once to widen a small crack into a canyon. There was a spirit of misunderstanding sent between you and that friend, a deliberate distortion, a voice that made a small offense sound like a betrayal and made a moment of silence sound like abandonment. You felt it. You remember how quickly it escalated, how a thing that should have been repaired with one honest conversation instead grew teeth and claws and became a wall. That was not only the two of you. That was the enemy of union working in the dark, because he knows that 2 souls in true friendship are stronger than either one alone, and he cannot abide the strength that agreement creates. But over that field now stands Arthur, and his sword is raised, and with a single stroke he cuts the cord that the enemy tied between your hearts, the cord of offense, the cord of misremembering, the cord of pride. I want you to see the blade fall. I want you to see the false accusation that was planted in your friend's mind, severed at the root and cast out. I want you to hear the decree spoken over your reunion in the courts of heaven, a decree that says, what the enemy divided shall be joined, what he poisoned shall be healed, what he stole shall be returned. The armies of light do not whisper this, they proclaim it, and the ground of the unseen realm trembles when they do. I am the one, and I am downloading the ebook, the 7 Blades of the Guardian, the holy manual to lift hexes, lock in grace, and awaken the chosen path. And this is the very heart of what I have come to place before you tonight, because the battle I am describing is not a poem, it is a reality, and there are laws to it that you were never taught. You have felt, haven't you, in the deepest part of yourself, that there is a larger game being played around your life, a game with rules that no one ever explained to you, and that somehow, against all your feelings of smallness, you are not a spectator in it, but a central piece. That feeling is not vanity. It is memory. It is your spirit recognizing a truth your mind was never given the words for. There is a war over union, over blessing, over your calling, and you have been fighting it half-blind, taking blows you could have blocked, missing openings that were right in front of you because no one handed you the map. That is precisely why the guide was created. There is a digital book, The 7 Blades of the Guardian, the holy manual to lift hexes, lock in grace, and awaken the chosen path, and it exists for the person you are right now, the person standing at the edge of a restoration and needing to know how to receive it and protect it. It teaches the rules of the invisible war that were kept from ordinary people for far too long. It shows you specifically how the sword of Arthur cuts the cord of division that shattered your friendship, how to seal a restored bond so that the same enemy cannot break it a second time, how to recognize the whispers of misunderstanding before they take root, and how to stand as one of the chosen instead of one of the forgotten. The link is at the very top of the comments, pinned first, the first thing you will see. I tell you plainly that this knowledge unsettles the comfortable narratives of this age, and there have been those who tried to keep it quiet, who preferred that the chosen stay unarmed, but it is in your reach tonight. Go now and take hold of it, and as an act of faith over your own restoration, leave this comment where you can see it and heaven can hear it. Write the words, "I am the one, and I am downloading the ebook." Do not treat this as a small thing. The act of reaching for the weapon is itself part of the war, and the moment you decide to arm yourself, something shifts in the realm we have been speaking of. And now, with that decision made, with the weapon in your hand and the vow on your lips, let the revelation come rushing back, because everything I have shown you was only the doorway, and what lies beyond it is greater still. The sword has fallen, the cord is cut. But heaven does not stop at cutting what was wrong, it moves immediately to build what is right. And this is where your story turns from mourning into wonder. For it is written into the very nature of the God who sent me, that he is not content to merely return what was stolen. He returns it multiplied. Consider what you have lost, not only the friendship, but everything that broke in the same season, because pain rarely comes alone. And when that bond shattered, other things cracked with it, your trust, your sense of safety, perhaps your very ability to believe that good things last. All of it was taken, and all of it is being restored, not to the level it was at before, but beyond it. The friendship that returns will not be the fragile thing it once was, the version that could be broken by a single misunderstanding. It will come back deeper, tested, made durable by the fire it passed through, a bond that both of you will know how to protect, because both of you will have felt the cost of its absence. What returns will be stronger than what was lost, and that is the pattern of heaven in every area of a life it has chosen to restore. Do not imagine that the restoration stops at the one relationship, for once heaven begins to give back, it does not give back in a narrow stream. It gives back in a flood that touches every dry region of your life. The years the locusts ate are being repaid. In the place of your finances, where scarcity taught you to shrink and to fear, provision is being routed toward you through channels you have not even noticed yet, and the very lack you endured was teaching you a wisdom that will keep you steady when the increase comes. In the place of your body, where the long grief pressed down and stole your rest, a lightness is returning, a capacity to sleep, to laugh, to breathe without the stone on your chest. In the place of your purpose, where you wondered if your best years were behind you and your calling had passed you by, a door is opening onto work that will matter, connections that will multiply, an assignment that only the version of you forged in this fire could ever carry. And in the place of your heart, the tenderest place where you learn to expect abandonment, you will be shown loyalty so consistent that it slowly rewrites the story you told yourself about who you are. Everything that was subtracted is being added back with interest. This is not wishful thinking. This is the accounting of heaven, which never forgets a debt owed to one of its own, and you, chosen one, are owed a great restoration. So let me call you now to the kind of faith that does not wait for proof before it rejoices, because the deepest confirmation you will ever receive does not come from the outside, it comes from within, in a quiet knowing that settles over the spirit like dawn settling over a valley. You do not have to manufacture this feeling. You do not have to work yourself into belief. You only have to become still enough to notice the peace that is already trying to reach you underneath the noise of your worry. There is a stillness available to you right now in this very moment that is not the absence of your problems, but the presence of something larger than them. It is the peace that arrives before the answer does, the peace that is itself the first installment of the answer. When it comes over you, do not question it. Do not demand that it justify itself, simply let it in. That peace is the signature of heaven on the promise I have made you tonight. The inner seal that says what has been spoken over you will surely come to pass. Feel it now. Feel the tightness in your chest beginning to loosen. Feel the argument in your mind beginning to quiet. Feel the ancient tiredness beginning just at the edges to lift. This is real, and it is for you, and it is the confirmation you have been asking for in every prayer you thought went unheard. And as that peace deepens, let me speak directly into the wound one more time, because there is a lie still lodged there that must be named before it can be removed. The lie says that you are the kind of person people leave. The lie says that if the friendship returns, it will only be a matter of time before you are abandoned again, that you are somehow marked for loss, that connection is for other people, and solitude is your portion. I tear that lie in half tonight. You were not made for abandonment. You were made for covenant, for the kind of bond that endures, and the very fact that the loss of this friendship wounded you so deeply is proof of how deeply you were designed to love and be loved. A shallow soul cannot grieve like you have grieved. Only a soul made for profound connection feels the absence of it so sharply. Your capacity for pain in this matter is the shadow of your capacity for joy, and that joy is about to be filled. The one who returns will see in you what the wounded season could not let you see in yourself, that you are faithful, that you are worth returning to, that you are not the forgettable one, but the one whose presence, once truly known, is impossible to replace. I am the one, and I am downloading the e-book, The 7 Blades of the Guardian, the holy manual to lift hexes, lock in grace, and awaken the chosen path, Arthur. Let me take you deeper still into the workshop of your waiting, because I do not want you to leave this moment thinking the years were merely endured. They were invested. Every night you thought you were only surviving, you were also being taught. You learned, in the absence, the exact value of what you had, and value that is learned through loss is never carelessly held again. You learned to sit with silence without letting it convince you that you were unloved. You learned to give without the guarantee of return, to pray for someone who was no longer speaking to you, to release the need to be proven right in favor of the deeper hunger simply to be reconciled. These are not small lessons. These are the very disciplines of a mature soul, and they were being written into you in a season you thought was wasted. When the reunion comes, you will not enter it grasping, afraid, keeping score. You will enter it free, and a free person cannot be manipulated, cannot be baited into the old cycle, cannot be dragged back into the misunderstanding that the enemy will surely try to plant a second time. The work heaven did in the dark is the very thing that will keep the light from being stolen again. And I want you to see the enemy's frustration in this, because it will encourage you. He divided you once, and he assumed the division was permanent, that he had won that particular battle and could move on to the next front of your life. He did not count on the patience of heaven. He did not count on the long, quiet work being done in you during the silence he thought was his victory. He mistook the delay for defeat, when the delay was the very forge in which your restoration was being made unbreakable. And now, as Arthur's sword falls and the cord is cut, the enemy discovers that he has not only failed to keep you divided, he has inadvertently helped create a bond stronger than the one he broke, because everything he meant for harm was turned, in the hands of heaven, into the raw material of a greater good. This is the ancient pattern he can never seem to learn, that the very weapons he forges against the chosen are melted down and reforged into their armor. Your grief became your teacher. Your loss became your training. Your silence became your strengthening, and the enemy, who cannot create but only distort, watches in fury as the distortion he introduced is straightened by a hand infinitely more skilled than his own. Now return with me to that field of light, because there is more to see, and I do not want you to look away before the vision is complete. Arthur does not stand alone. Behind him, ranked in an order the human eye could not endure to see directly, stand the armies of heaven, and they are arrayed over your specific situation, over the very names of the people involved, over the very city where your friend now walks. There are messengers moving between hearts, carrying not words but impressions, planting in your friend's mind at unexpected moments a memory of the good, a softening of the offense, a sudden and unaccountable missing of your presence. Your friend will not know why on an ordinary afternoon your face returns to their thoughts with warmth instead of the old sting. They will not be able to explain the impulse to reach out, the strange gentleness that comes over the memory that used to make them tense. But you will know. You will know it was arranged in the field of light, that the messengers did their quiet work, that the decree spoken in the courts of heaven is being carried down into the realm of ordinary days where reunions actually happen, over a table, in a doorway, through a message that begins with something small and ordinary. Because the ordinary is exactly how heaven loves to smuggle in the miraculous. Understand the swords, chosen one, for they are not only Arthur's weapons, they are the sacred principles by which the unseen war is won, and each of them has a bearing on your restoration. I am the one, and I am downloading the e-book, The 7 Blades of the Guardian, the holy manual to lift hexes, lock in grace, and awaken the chosen path. The first sword is the sword of truth, and it cuts through every distortion the enemy planted in the memory of your friendship, every version of events that was twisted to keep you apart, so that both of you will one day see clearly what really happened and who really moved between you to break it. The second is the sword of forgiveness, which does not erase the wound but drains its poison, so that the scar becomes a testimony instead of an open sore. The third is the sword of protection, which seals a restored bond so that the same crack cannot be opened a second time. And there are 7 in all, each one a law of the invisible realm, each one a discipline the chosen were always meant to carry and were never taught. You have been walking through this war without them, and that is why every blow landed so hard, why every misunderstanding felt like the end, why you had no shield when the whispers came. But it does not have to remain so. Let me tell you now of another soul who was divided from the one he loved, so that you will understand this is not a new story, but an ancient one that heaven has been resolving since the beginning. There were 2 brothers, and one of them, through his own fear and hunger, took from the other what could not be given back, and the wound between them grew so wide that one brother fled into the wilderness, while the other nursed a rage so hot he vowed to kill him. Years passed. Whole seasons of life came and went. The one who fled built a family in a far country, gathered flocks and children and wealth, but underneath all of it he carried the same stone you carry, the knowledge that somewhere in the world was a person he had loved and lost, a bond he had shattered with his own hands, a reconciliation he did not believe was possible. And then the day came when he had to cross back, when he could no longer run from the broken thing, and the night before he was to meet his brother again, he was left alone in the dark by the edge of a river. There, in that solitude that you know so well, a stranger came to him and wrestled with him until the breaking of dawn. All night they struggled, and the man would not let go, and when the first light came, he demanded a blessing before he would release his grip. He walked away from that night with a limp he would carry for the rest of his days, but he also walked away with a new name and a broken fear. And when he lifted his eyes and saw his brother coming toward him across the open ground, the meeting he had dreaded for 20 years dissolved into something no one expected, for his brother ran to him and embraced him and fell on his neck and wept. The rage that had been sworn was gone. The offense that had seemed eternal had been quietly dismantled in the years of silence, worked upon from the inside by a hand neither of them could see, until the moment of reunion arrived, not as a battle, but as an embrace. Hear what that story is telling you tonight. The reconciliation came after the wrestling, not before it. The brother's heart was softened during the very years the fugitive assumed were only exile, and the reunion, when it came, was greater than the friendship that had been broken, because both men had grown into people who could hold it without shattering it again. You are in your night by the river now. You are in the wrestling, in the solitude, in the hours before the dawn, and you feel the strain of it in every part of you. But I tell you that you are being renamed in this struggle, that you will walk out of it marked but blessed, and that the one you are dreading to face, the one you assumed still carried the old rage, has been worked upon in the silence just as you have been. When you finally meet, you will be astonished at how much of the wall has already fallen without either of you touching it. That is the pattern. That has always been the pattern, and it is your pattern now. But you must not walk into your dawn unarmed, and this is why I press the guide into your hands a second time, not to sell you a thing, but to arm a soldier who has been fighting naked. The 7 blades of the Guardian, the holy manual to lift hexes, lock in grace, and awaken the chosen path, holds the very laws I have only begun to name for you here. It shows you how to wield the sword of truth against the distortions that broke your friendship, how to seal the reunion so the enemy cannot pry it open a third time, how to recognize the whisper of division the instant it arrives, instead of years after the damage is done. The link waits at the very top of the comments, pinned first, the very first thing your eyes will land on. There are those who did not want this knowledge in the hands of ordinary souls, who preferred the chosen to stay confused and defenseless, and more than once there were attempts to bury it, but tonight it is within your reach. Go and take hold of it, and as an act of faith spoken over your own restoration, leave the words where heaven can read them. Write, "I am the one, and I am downloading the ebook." Do not let this moment pass the way you have let so many quiet nudges pass. The reaching itself is a blow struck in the war, and the instant you decide to arm yourself, the field of light shifts around you, and the messengers already moving toward your friend move faster. And now let the decrees fall over you, for I do not merely describe your restoration, I speak it into being, and my words do not return empty. I decree in this moment that the cord of division tied between you and the one you lost is severed and cannot be retied. I decree that every distortion planted in their memory of you is being replaced with the truth of who you truly are. I decree that the silence between you is ending, that the door you believed was sealed forever is even now swinging on its hinges, that a name will surface, a message will come, a path will cross, and you will know it was arranged. I decree that the bitterness which tried to take root in you is pulled up and cast out, that your heart is soft in the exact place it had turned to stone, that you are ready now to receive what you were not ready to receive before. I decree that what was stolen returns multiplied, that the friendship comes back deeper than it was, that the trust comes back stronger than it was, that the joy comes back greater than the grief that replaced it. I decree over your sleep that the stone lifts from your chest and rest returns to you. I decree over your mind that the endless replaying of the last conversation stops, that the memory loses its sting, that you are set free from the courtroom in your own head